how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, I best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the friend?
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent, joining you live from LA today in afternoon drive time. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the socials at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ. And there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app if you haven't already to listen to KBLA live or on demand. Or if you fancy like that, you can just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. You'll never miss the leadership from the front lines. You'll never miss some of the black genius that dons the airways with us. You won't miss any of that if you just subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. And I want to remind you that October 25th, mark your calendars, be there, be square. The Left Coast Forum is happening in LA at LA Trade Tech. Run, don't walk to your computer to register. Go to KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com to register for free. A host of leaders on the front lines are going to be there. There'll be a number of panels, a number of keynotes, and a lot of opportunity to organize. You'll be hearing from keynotes like Dr. Cornel West, and you'll also be hearing from Richard Wolff and so many leaders on the front lines, as I mentioned, leaders from organizations like St. John's Community Health, Liberty Hill Foundation, LA Progressive, Black PAC. I mean, the list goes on and on and on in terms of progressive frontline leaders that are going to be there. And if you're looking for an opportunity to tap in, if you're looking to figure out where you fit in as we navigate these uncharted waters ahead, this is the place to be. October 25th, the Left Coast Forum. Again, be there, be square. Go to KBLA1580.com to register. Now, happy Indigenous People Day. If you are like me growing up, some folks used to call this Columbus Day. But we ain't calling it Columbus Day around here. We're calling it Indigenous People Day, and happy Indigenous People Day to you. Now it's time for your national news roundup this Indigenous People Day. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, nothing ugly about this. A lot of folks have been waiting a long time to see a headline like this. Hamas releases Israeli hostages as world leaders sign peace deal in Egypt. NPR is reporting that President Trump declared the Gaza war over and received a standing ovation in Israel's parliament, then in Egypt at a signing ceremony earlier today for his leading role in bringing about a ceasefire in the war-ravaged territory. In a crucial part of the agreement, Hamas released the last 20 living Israeli hostages who had been captive for just over 2 years. In turn, Israel freed nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Most of the Palestinians were taken from Israeli prisons. They were placed on buses and driven to either Gaza or the West Bank. They were greeted by cheering crowds along with hugs from friends and family. Israel was also sending some abroad, effectively placing them in exile. The released Palestinians included some who had been convicted of killings and imprisoned for decades, though most had been detained without charge during the past 2 years of fighting. Trump told the members of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, quotes, "This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better." That's what President Trump said in his speech, frequently punctuated with applause. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. And so that's what the president said in his remarks today. We'll be sure to get into this major headline in short order with our guests in just a few moments. But on to a few other headlines. Speaking of President Trump, the Trump administration reverses layoffs for some CDC staff. Yeah, they've been laying off a bunch of people during this government shutdown. Well, NBC News is reporting that the Trump administration on Saturday reversed some layoffs at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention after hundreds of scientists received, quotes, incorrect notifications that they were laid off during the government shutdown. The reverse layoffs, first reported by the New York Times, come just after the administration moved to lay off thousands of federal workers during the government shutdown, prompting backlash from critics who argue that the layoffs are illegal. The reduction in force, these reduction in force moves are being challenged in court, and they mark the latest fallout from the government shutdown fight, which has stretched into its second week as lawmakers show absolutely no sign of moving closer to a deal. I mean, talk about disrupting people's lives. But on the other news, where this newest contender for LA mayor is trying to disrupt Mayor Bass's ability to win a second term. The Los Angeles Times reporting that Austin Buettner launches a bid for LA mayor, vowing to fight injustice under Trump. That's right. You heard it right. The former LA school superintendent, Austin Buettner, kicked off his campaign for mayor today with a video message that hits not just Mayor Karen Bass, but President Trump and his immigration crackdown. Buettner, a philanthropist and former investment banker, he used the 4-minute campaign video to describe LA as a city that is, quote, under attack, a message punctuated by footage of U.S. Border Patrol agents. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson denounced Buettner's statement as, quote, a false and dangerous smear meant to incite violence against ICE officers. Immigration officers have experienced a huge increase in assaults, she said, and because of lies like this from Democratic leaders. The Trump administration's top enforcement priority is dangerous criminal illegal aliens. That's what the White House spokesperson said. But Buettner's messaging on the ICE raids and Trump more broadly could help him reach voters that have soured on Mayor Bass, but want a Democrat who will aggressively push back on the president's policies. it's worth noting that Austin Butner, who is 65, he highlighted his work spearheading the LA Unified School District through the COVID-19 pandemic and working to pass Proposition 28 in California. You might remember that was the 2022 measure supporting arts education in California public schools. And so that's what he had to say. But a Bass campaign spokesperson, Douglas Herman, he pushed back on criticism, saying that the city needs to, quote, move past divisive attacks. He said violent crime is down across the city, with homicides falling to the lowest levels in 60 years. He went on to say that when Karen Bass ran for mayor, homelessness and public safety were the top concerns of Angelenos, and she has delivered in a big way. Today, homelessness has decreased 2 consecutive years for the first time in LA, and thousands of people have been moved off of our streets into housing. And so we are preparing for what may be a spirited campaign for mayor here in California, of course, but here in LA. And so we look forward to having Austin Butner join us here on A More Perfect Union to lay out his plan, lay out his vision for LA. Austin Butner is no stranger to the show. He's been on before, as has Mayor Karen Bass. And so we look to continue the conversation. Finally, when we come forward, we're going to be digging beyond the headlines with one of our favorite contributors and former White House fellows, William Godwin, joins us when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Hit me!
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We are live. We are live on air. We are streaming live from Los Angeles and wherever in the world William Godwin is. Welcome back to the show to our More Perfect Union contributor. He's a former White House fellow. He's the former city council president in Gary, Indiana. From the hyper-local to the White House, he has his finger on the pulse of what's happening behind the headlines. Welcome back to the show, William.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I'm actually in Jackson, Tennessee. I came down for Lane College's homecoming, so that was a festive time.
I'm sure it is. I can hear it in your voice. And so first things first, before we jump into some of these headlines, you might have heard me going through some of the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Lots of eyes on the city of Los Angeles. You know it well. And I've got to ask you, as a former city council president that is very well aware of the role of local government officials, and also the challenge of being a local government official in this moment. Talk to us about, your view on the challenge that's being mounted in the LA mayor's race. We have current mayor Karen Bass, who's running for re-election, former member of the Congressional Black Caucus, in fact, former chair. From the hyper-local to the national, she's a pretty good grasp on things and has really helped the city to navigate some really choppy waters when it comes to getting resources for the LA wildfires, when it comes to, unlocking resources to address some of the root causes of homelessness, both federal dollars and state dollars. She's in a class of her own. But it's not without, some communications challenges. Obviously, it was a slow start to addressing the wildfires, but it's been a stronger finish. But you have Austin Butner, a billionaire that is entering in the race for mayor. What do you make of this?
Sounds like deja vu, right? I can't remember the gentleman who ran against her or that she ran against last time.
Rick Caruso.
Vic Caruso, that's correct. But I think there's a lot of billionaires, right, who want to get involved in politics, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no limit in terms of your income. But I think she is doing a fantastic job given the challenges, multiple challenges that she has faced and that many mayors are facing across the country. I think communication is key, right, in keeping your body politic, keeping your base engaged. I believe that President Trump is actually helping mayors like Karen Bass, Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, who's also struggled heavily in the polls because they are becoming a contrast, right? They're becoming the voice of the opposition to the intrusion of the federal government that we're seeing in many of our major cities. So I think in some ways, President Trump is helping to elevate the mayors of Baltimore, of Chicago, and LA.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. I mean, I think, we're watching the oligarchy class really flex in this moment, right? And it's not without noting that you have a billionaire that's just entered the race for mayor of Los Angeles. To your point, deja vu, because, 4 years ago, Rick Caruso, the billionaire, was in the race. And you also have Rick Caruso reportedly considering running for governor of California. And so that would be another billionaire.
Right.
That may be potentially joining that race. Talk to us about this moment. Organized people and organized money win elections. And is this moment proving that organized people and organized money may not be a match against the billionaire class?
I think it can be. We often talk about the 3 M's in politics: money, message, and masses, right? You need the money to get your message out. You need a message that resonates, and you got to be able to collect people people power would ultimately vote for you. We saw that Elon Musk, for example, put a lot of money into the Wisconsin judicial race and lost, right, because of people power who were organized over and against money. I think there's so many alternative media outlets, and there's so much outrage that we're seeing in cities across the country in red and blue states that I'm not sure that money alone is going to be sufficient without a message that resonates. Why should we pick you? You're a billionaire. That's fine. That's great. Maybe there's some independence there, as we see with Governor Pritzker in Illinois, right? He has a lot of flexibility to be able to say what he wants to say, to be able to challenge the president. He's economically independent. He's able to pay his deputy governors beyond what the state legislature allows, right? So there's a lot of power that comes with that. But at the same time, I believe people power will always, or at least mostly, outweigh the influence of money. But there has to be a message that resonates.
Well, there's certainly a message that will resonate here at home and abroad coming out of the Middle East today. All living Israeli hostages have been released from Gaza, and Trump and world leaders have signed a peace deal in Egypt. This is what we know at this moment, as reported by NBC News. President Trump has left Egypt after a whirlwind Middle East trip, which included the signing of the peace deal to end the war in Gaza and addressing the Israel parliament, the Knesset. All 20 of the surviving hostages in Gaza have been released. And while the remains of other hostages were also expected to be transferred, the group representing those families of abductees, they announced that only 4 bodies out of the 28 held by Hamas would be heading back today. Meanwhile, we know that Hamas has pledged to release the hostages by today in exchange for 250 prisoners serving life sentences and more than 1,700 Palestinians detained after the October 7th terrorist attack. Did Donald Trump earn stronger consideration for a Nobel Prize today?
Well, I think so, right? As hard as it may be to say it, we know that almost a little over 2 years, this has been a significant struggle in the Middle East. We know there's a longer history, right, of fighting with Gaza and the West Bank and the state of Israel, and it has been an ongoing challenge. Part of it, I think, is timing, right? Unfortunately, President Biden and Vice President Harris dealt with the brunt of it, right, and didn't have the time to complete the job. But I do believe that the Nobel Prize maybe next year will go. It's already been dedicated, may go to President Trump if this is able to hold. And if Hamas holds its end of the deal, and if in fact the ceasefire maintains, and I think that's much easier said and signed than done, right? There's a lot that has to be worked out. There's a lot in terms of resources and rebuilding efforts that have to be done. And of course, the release of the hostages, I'm so grateful that is happening. And I'm certainly send my best wishes and condolences in some cases to the families who've had to wait for now over 2 years to be reunited with their loved ones. But at the same time, we have to note that there was quite an exchange, right? Over 1,000 folks who were in prison, Palestinians, have been released. And so they did their own negotiating on their side, the Palestinian side, with this deal as well. So we will see what the future holds and if this peace maintains.
You know, one of the things that I think I heard Van Jones say on CNN shortly after it was announced that this deal was taking place, you know, in response to a question around Trump and the Nobel Prize, you know, he said something to the effect of the challenge that the president has is the split screen. That on one hand, you know, this is news that folks have been waiting a long time to see and to celebrate. But on the other hand, you look at what's happening in our country, where we're seeing what feels like far from peace in too many corners of the United States. Do you agree with Van Jones? Is that a part of what is maybe working against the president's accomplishment being recognized in a way that it should?
I agree. Absolutely. And let's be honest, even the Israel-Palestinian situation is challenging, right? When just a few months ago, you're talking about wiping out Gaza and turning it into a resort, right? As if it's not the home of hundreds of thousands of people for many, many centuries. And so there's a lot in the rhetoric, I think, that complicates even this current peace pathway to peace. And certainly your point is well taken, right? When you're talking about going to war with Chicago, right? Or going to war in Oregon, in Portland, that language and the images that we're seeing, especially on social media, from not only, unfortunately, immigrants who are facing ICE and facing the violence of ICE, and protesters, peaceful protesters who are also being harmed, but even business owners who are crying out. I saw a journalist from WGN in Chicago on the ground, flat, tied up, right, who was peacefully protesting. So folks who may have thought they were exempt, who were in comfortable positions, recently in South Shore, a majority Black neighborhood in Chicago, helicopters came down, right, and the whole building was raided. So there is no color limit, right? There is no language limit to who is being affected by these raids. And so I think Van is correct. The narrative is very complicated with the rhetoric as well as the domestic activity.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. And look, this president, to your point, if this Middle East deal holds, it is significant. There are no ways around it. I thought it was a little bit of a dig to President Biden. I saw Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I think it was during the address of the Knesset, had made the point that Trump was the best friend that Israel has ever had in the United States. Was that a dig at President Biden?
Well, I think so. I mean, to Biden's ultimate disadvantage, he declared himself more than once a Zionist, right? Which I'm not sure, maybe he has. I'm not sure President Trump has made that assertion. But I do think that Trump took a very aggressive stance. I do believe he's motivated by awards like the Nobel Peace Prize. And I believe he made a big promise that he was going to end a lot of this. And so he was willing to probably be more aggressive. Ways that would be unprecedented and unorthodox for any American president.
When we come forward, we're continuing to go beyond the headlines with former White House fellow and Gary City Council President William Godwin. U.S. consumers are bearing more than half the cost for tariffs, according to Goldman Sachs, and U.S. measles cases continue to climb. Is this what the golden age of America really looks like? More when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. St. Petersburg, Florida City Council has sent a proposal for alternate city flags to committee. Designed by Andrea Paulus, the flags feature pride and Pan-African themes with the city seal.
It was important to me to design these flags when the intersection was censored and erased.
The move follows the state's removal of rainbow crosswalks with a final review set for October 23rd. Ghana has agreed to accept West African nationals deported from the U.S. President John Mahama says 14 have already arrived, adding that West Africans don't need a visa to enter Ghana. The Trump administration has also asked other African nations to take in deportees. California Governor Gavin Newsom has approved a new agency to oversee slavery reparations. It follows a 5-year study on compensation for Black Americans. The agency will handle restitution for descendants of enslaved people, though details are still being decided. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's tough in Sun Valley, 5 northbound leaving Sunland Boulevard and stretches all the way to the 14. And the 170 northbound also feeling that extra pressure away from Victory Boulevard all the way to the 5 merge into Sun Valley. The drive on the 405 northbound delays out of West LA, leaving the 10 in stretches all the way to the 5 merge into Sylmar. And it's slowing out of Calabasas, South 101 away from Lost Hills in stretches to the 170, 134 split ahead in Hollywood from Sunset into downtown Los Angeles.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
When Penn State fired Coach James Franklin on Sunday, the move reduced the number of black head coaches in Division I college football to 15. That's only 10% of the 134 Division I programs around the country. In this week's top 25 rankings, only one of the 25 schools has a black head coach. Number 13, Notre Dame, is led by Marcus Freeman, who's in his fourth season at Notre Dame. Freeman led Notre Dame to last year's national championship game. UCLA played a role in Franklin's dismissal. The Bruins pulled off the upset of the year in college football when they beat Penn State on October 4th. The Bruins are part of Penn State's 3-game losing streak. Jackson State moved up to number 13 in this week's Division I AA poll. 5-1 Jackson State is the only HBCU team in the 1AA top 25. The next game for Jackson State is Saturday, October 25th in Las Vegas against Grambling. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chucky. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and joining us is one of our favorite contributors here on More Perfect Union, William G. Godwin. He's a former White House fellow, former city council president for Gary, Indiana, and is a PhD student these days at the Howard University. You know,
that's right. HU.
That's right. I'm not an HU alum, but I know. I surely know. Congratulations on your continued learning journey.
Thank you.
Look, one of the things that folks are learning about, maybe the hard way, is that all those promises a year ago during the campaign to lower the cost for consumers, well, I'm scratching my head because I'm looking for evidence that those costs are actually going down. I mean, think about it. You know, with this government shutdown, you have government employees that aren't getting a paycheck.
That's right.
And so, costs aren't going down for them. In fact, they're probably paying more, because they're having to work. Many of them are having to work without a paycheck, including some service members, as has been reported before. But NBC News is reporting that U.S. consumers are bearing more than half the cost of tariffs so far. It's according to Goldman Sachs. 6 months into President Trump's unprecedented gambit to impose sizable tariffs on imports, U.S. consumers are already shouldering as much as 55% of their costs. And with new tariffs most likely on the way, the cost burden could rise even harder. William, help me understand, how can President Trump or any of these Republicans spin this story well enough to make people think that what's happening is the golden age in America, when in fact there ain't nothing golden about these reports?
Well, their message all along has been short-term pain for long-term gain, right? That this is just something we must do sacrificially. It'll hurt you for a little bit, but we'll get over this hump, right? We got to negotiate out of our trade deficit with China and Korea and other countries, Mexico, from whom we get a lot of our products, our technology, everything from washers and drying machines to food, right? That is so important to our ability as an economy to move forward and for everyday people to be able to live, right? And so we have not seen a change in inflation. In fact, it has gone up in many cases, even with the slight discounting of interest rates that we expect to come out of the Federal Reserve, which has also been a point of severe contention. But we know that in fact also tends to raise costs, right? Because they're able to get money for cheaper. Mm-hmm. And so you're able to raise the cost of housing and other things for which people seek loans. So they've been able to have a very strong base. And that is to Donald Trump's credit, that maybe outside of the Epstein files and a couple other wedge issues, it seems as much of his base has been willing to stick with him so far on the issue of inflation. However, I think as we get into the holiday season and folks start being more intentional in their buying, and as people start paying their taxes next January and February and start assessing where they are economically and they begin the new year, I think some of that's going to wear off if, in fact, there's not a reduction in costs that people can really feel.
In August, there are reports that President Trump assailed an initial Goldman Sachs estimate that said consumers could bear as much as 67% cost of tariffs. In a statement, White House spokesperson Kush Desi said, quotes, "The president and the administration's position has always been clear. While Americans may face a transition period from tariffs upending a broken status quo that's put America last, the cost of tariffs will ultimately be borne by foreign exports. Companies are already shifting and diversifying their supply chain in response to tariffs, including by onshoring production in the United States. Americans can rest assured that the administration will continue to deliver economic relief from Joe Biden's inflation crisis while laying the groundwork for a long-term restoration of greatness in America." It sounds like a lot of talk, but it don't translate to people's B of A account.
It does not, but
And talk to us about the politics of this. We're nearly a year out from the midterm elections. This can't be good for Republicans heading into the midterms, up and down the ticket.
I agree, but that's about almost 13 months away. And so a lot can happen between now and then. And also in that article, they talk about, I think it's about $60 billion, I believe, that they say they have brought in because of the heightened tariffs, that they're considering checks And we know that this president in the previous Trump 1.0 was very smart in some ways in sending out checks to the American people and with a letter and signature and all of that. And people remembered that, right? He gave me a check, even though the federal government is the one who gave you the check. But they played politics with that. And there's even some commentary that they might use some of these dollars to sort of give a rebate to American citizens. And so at the end of the day, that's not likely to change people's cost of everyday items, food, household products, vehicles, all the things that people need to survive and thrive. But it is a political game, right? That I wouldn't be surprised if it were executed next summer.
Yeah, and look, and that check is pennies on the dollar compared to the rising cost of healthcare, particularly for people who rely on Medicaid, for example. But aside from that, there are reports that U.S. measles cases continue to climb with outbreaks across the country. NPR reporting that nearly 2 months after a deadly massive measles outbreak in Texas was declared over, the highly contagious disease continues to spread across the country. The U.S. has now confirmed over 1,500 cases this year. That's according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the highest annual number in more than 3 decades. Talk about deja vu. I mean, measles is a very different kind of outbreak compared to COVID. But we're talking about a disease that we have managed over the course of several decades. I mean, I would be hard pressed to remember growing up and learning of anybody who, had any medical complications from measles. That is not the case for this generation of folks that are coming up. It's not the case now. Talk to us about the politics of just this combination, of consumer anxiety due to rising cost and a sense that not only is healthcare becoming more expensive, but the government's ability to surveil and control and invest in public health in this country, that seems to be waning. You put these 3 things together, is it enough to get a critical mass of Americans to change course at the polls?
Well, it's a scary trio. And when you think about a few things, the anti-vaccination campaign that this president and many others, including our current Secretary Kennedy of Health and Human Administration, have promulgated, right? This sort of vaccination fear, even though, right, the president got a booster shot reportedly, I believe, late last week or this weekend. And so you have this anti-vaccine narrative that many Americans bought into, a lot of misinformation, disinformation on social media about vaccines, combined with an all-out assault on scientists at the National Institutes of Health, at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 2 critical institutions for, on the one hand, helping to discover cures, right, and therapeutics, and on the other hand, helping to fight it from an epidemiological standpoint, right, to prevent the next pandemic or epidemic from wreaking havoc on our country. So we're not only sort of dealing with bad narratives, we're dealing with the destruction of the systems, right, that have been put in place for decades to protect American citizens, but also to innovate in terms of new discoveries to deal with the variations of these diseases that we're seeing reemerge.
When we come forward, I want to give you an opportunity to share the quiet part out loud. As it seems, President Obama is sharing the quiet part out loud, calling this moment in our country a test. He gets pretty candid with a fellow podcaster. We're going to tell you all about it when we come forward and get William's reaction. And just as a programming note, stick around for our second hour with Dr. Ian Smith. That's right, health and wellness guru, Dr. Ian Smith, as in the same Dr. Ian Smith that has authored over a dozen books and counting. We're going to talk about his latest project. In addition, I'm going to ask him to tell us something that we don't know based upon President Trump's reported clean bill of health from the folks over at Walter Reed. I want to hear from a medical doctor. What does he see that maybe we don't see? All of that is coming forward when we all of that when we come forward right here on A More Perfect Union. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. He is former White House fellow William G. Godwin, and you are listening to A More Perfect Union.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and joined with William G. Godwin, former White House fellow and smarty pants over at Howard University. I should say resident smarty pants because he's a PhD student. Thank you for being here, William.
Thank you.
So listen, the LA Times reporting that former President Barack Obama, he spoke to stand-up comedian Mark Marions on his final podcast today, and he said that the Trump administration's policies are a test of whether universities, businesses, law firms, and voters, including Republicans, will take a stand for the nation's founding principles and values. The former president saying, quotes, "If you decide not to vote, that's a consequence. If you are a Hispanic man and you're frustrated about inflation, and so you decide, you know what, all that rhetoric about Trump doesn't matter. I'm just mad about inflation." Obama said, and now your son's being stopped in LA because they look Latino and maybe without the ability to call anybody, might just be locked up. Well, that's a test. And more than an hour-long discussion with Marion on this pretty popular podcast called WTF with Mark Marion, the former Democratic president said that current events could jolt America. I think that's just putting it lightly. What say you about this moment? Do you think almost a year after one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime, do you think almost a year in, is there enough regret out there where folks may be looking to change course? I mean, we'll have a more accurate assessment of this in a few weeks when we look at the results from elections in places like New York City and Virginia and New Jersey, among other places. But does this moment feel markedly different than any other moment over the course of the past 9 months?
I think so, right? I think it's the combination of so many institutions that even Vice President Kamala Harris in her book, 107 Days, talks about her frustration and disbelief that the guardrails, right, that were supposed to be in place, whether it's the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and even the media, are all falling and capitulating with many activities that are purely illegal, right? We can have policy disagreements. We can deal in the gray, but there are very clear actions being taken that just flout in the face of all of our rule of law, all of our long-standing legal norms. And so I think that we're seeing it not just sort of on Wall Street, right, with the tariffs causing havoc in the markets, not just at the elite higher education institutions, which are fearful of losing their billions of dollars in research that helps us to find cures for diseases and even helps our military, right, with science and technology. But it's also hitting the food banks and the food pantries and the small church-based nonprofit organizations that are no longer getting their grants from various federal agencies that they depended on for a long time. It's hitting students, graduate and undergraduate, and parents who are trying to finance education. And so I think that because it's not just sort of Wall Street and not just the elite world, but it's touching Main Street, and people are starting to sense that there's something different this time of year than it was last year in terms of the resources and opportunities that are available to them, that everyday people will feel the effect. And that's what's really required to change voters' perspectives.
One of the things that I think the former president would argue is required in order to change perspectives, and, he says in this interview that we really criticized some Democrats' messaging as he touched on significant issues facing Californians and discussed the state of the nation's democracy, core convictions, and weakening institutional norms. But he said more specifically, quotes, "You can't constantly lecture people without acknowledging that you've got some blind spots too, and that life's messy." Faulting language used by some liberals as holier than thou, Obama argued that Democrats could remain true to their principles while respecting those with whom disagree with them, saying, right, I've got some core convictions, beliefs I'm not going to compromise, but I'm also not going to assert that I'm so righteous and so pure and so insightful that there is not the possibility that maybe I'm wrong on this, or that other people, if they don't say the things exactly the way I say them, or see things exactly the way I do, that somehow they're bad people.
I think he's right on. And I think even this New York City mayor's race, where I believe Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, finally a couple weeks ago endorsed the leading candidate.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about the same race where Hakeem Jeffries still hasn't endorsed?
I think you are. And I think the point you're getting at is that we got to get back to the Big Ten.
William, the same race where Chuck Schumer, he hasn't endorsed either?
That's correct. That's correct.
The same race where a lot of leading Democrats across the country have not endorsed the Democratic nominee for mayor of the largest city in the country. That race, is that what you're talking about?
That's the one. That's the one. And I think it speaks to a larger problem that we got to realize. Look how diverse the Republican Party is now, right? I mean, you have Trump, who really doesn't follow a lot of the traditional, say, Mitch McConnell Republican values, right? Who's very flexible on a lot of positions. that they held strong on for years, right? And so we have conservative religious folks who have their issues within the Republican Party. And so we have to be able to embrace liberal Democrats as well as middle of the road blue dog Democrats and yellow dog left Democrats, right?
Yeah,
And
but I think it's also important in our remaining minutes. It's also important that we shine a light on. I think a lot of folks are surprised that people were putting the bag before their principles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Let's not dress it up. Whether you're talking about universities or law firms or individuals, the fact of the matter is, a lot of people put their bag first. And any constitutional principles, may come after that or after something else. But, I think part of what we've got to interrogate, is, our relationship with our with profit.
Right.
Right. And so, for example, in the news business, I don't know, should the news business have a profit motive? Right. There's certainly, we've seen examples of how that compromises news judgment. So another topic for another day, but my thanks to William Godwin for joining us. He is a More Perfect Union contributor. He's also a former White House fellow. Like I said, resident smarty pants.
The real HU.
He said it, not me. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward in our next hour, we'll be joined with Dr. Ian Smith, health and wellness guru. No stranger to this show. I don't know how he cranks them out, but he has another book that's out. Can't wait to share that with you and also get his insights on some of the day's biggest trending headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass faces a 2026 challenge from former school superintendent Austin Butner.
The city spent billions to solve problems that have just become bigger problems.
The investment banker announced his mayoral run in a YouTube video criticizing Bass's handling of the Palisades fire, which damaged his home and destroyed his mother-in-law's.